Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, both Julia and Marco. Let's wait for the others. No? Siguro 1 or 2 more minutes. I'll just prepare the deck. Sige, let's give it 1 more minute na. All right, I think we can start, no? Only if it, I mean, it's okay if it's only 4 of us. You know, hopefully the others can join us later. Sige, I don't know what happened. Or maybe others just felt lazy to join. But anyway, we'll start now. So today, I'll have a few announcements. I wanted to provide additional info, no, on last week's topic on investment, manufacturing, etc. And then we'll also proceed to the last part of module 3, and then finally I'll try to do a very short introduction for module 4. So we'll probably spend an hour and a half today, this evening. All right. So you can see my slide naman, no? My deck, no? Just let me know if my audio is choppy or something. So same deal. Maybe you guys are still on module 3. So I'm nearing I'm almost done with module 4 actually. So I'll post it definitely before October 18th. So I haven't posted it yet because I'm just putting some finishing touches and just to give you more breathing space, no? So you don't feel compelled to start module 4 just because it's already posted. All right. So yeah, I'm recording this anyway, no? So I'll still go through the entire lecture, no? Even if it's only 3 of you. So you probably saw that I posted grades already. So just to revisit the grading system and the syllabus. So uh, this is it. No? So A is 92 to 100, B plus is 87 to 91, B is 82 to 86, C plus 77 to 81, etc., etc. So if you have questions and concerns, email me. No, since I'm only teaching part time, I'm sorry I can't provide comments to each paper. No? But I will be providing some general comments later after this slide. No? On some of my observations based on all the papers I've seen so far. So just in case you're wondering, no, I think of B as good already. No? B plus is very good and A is outstanding. No? So if I give you an A, I probably really saw something like, wow, galing, really solid no, effort. No? Most of the class got a B and B plus. I think I gave a few A's. No? Or at least 2 only. No? But really good effort for most of you. No? If you're also interested in the rubric, go back to the syllabus. Basically, it's 3 things. No? I'm looking at how you organize the paper, which is, I accounted for that for 20%. Your critical evaluation or your thinking, the thinking side, which is 30%, how you diagnose the issues, as well as how you thoughtfully considered, or did you thoughtfully consider interventions, and finally how you wrote it, if it's clear, if it's concise, if it's integrated, if it's good sequencing, etc. That's also 20%. So there were a couple who turned in their assignments late. For that, they got a 5-point deduction. Sayang, di ba? For example, if your grade was supposed to be, let's say, 88, then you slide to B just because you're late. So sayang. I think there were a couple as well who got deductions. So in case you really want to boost your grade further, of course, aside from the assignment 2 and the final integrated output, just a reminder for you to take the discussion board seriously. I won't grade per post, but it will account for 20%. Online participation accounts for 20% of your grade. I will not grade your input for each discussion board. I will grade your discussion board engagement as an aggregate. So if you answer all and then you put down something that's thoughtful, for me, that you can easily get a 20%. So please take that seriously. But I do read, no? So some of you might, just be for the sake of complying, quote unquote, or ticking the box, just putting whatever, no? So I will know, napilit, no? If that's the case. So just a few notes, no? I actually had a lot of observations. On the technical side, on the substance side, I have a few of some 2 slides, no, and also on the writing part, on the organization part. So, and think of this as additional information or additional learning for you. No? So first, no, I lumped it under labor, employment, and income. So It's actually counterintuitive, but unemployment among the poor is usually lower. This has been established. No? You know, people were caught by surprise, no, when probably more than maybe almost 2 decades ago, no, the Philippine version of the UN's Human Development Report, it's the Philippine Human Development Report, came out with this empirical finding that unemployment among the poor is actually lower. So don't think that most of the poor are unemployed. No, actually, bakit? No, they were thinking, why? Why is that the case? You know, unemployment or employment, it doesn't speak about the quality of the job. It just means you have a job or not, and you're looking for one. So they were of the opinion that, you know, the poor, especially the poor, you know, they cannot afford not to be working. Di ba? Kasi you don't have money na. So whatever comes, you keep finding whatever comes first, no? Whatever kind of job that is, you grab it. No? The non-poor ones are the ones who have more luxury of taking their time, assessing, okay ba to? I don't like it. Okay, next. So it's really the poor who really need employment. So it doesn't talk about the quality. No? So yun nga ang problema. No? They're desperate in many ways. So sometimes whatever comes first, whether it's really a bad type of job, quote unquote, whatever that means, they hold on to that. Labor force is just the number of employed and unemployed. No? Again, as we discussed last time, no, you are considered unemployed if you're first looking for a job. No, if you're a student, you're not unemployed. No, because you are not looking for a job. You have to be jobless but looking and available. So the labor force is just that, the number of people seeking, or well, it's the number of employed plus unemployed. It's the people who participate or want to participate in employment. I saw some mistakes now, which are forgivable because again, some of these are very new terms to you. No? So I saw some that, you know, they compared or they divided the number of unemployed people by the total population. That's wrong. You only divide the unemployed people, kung numerator yon, by the total number of people in the labor force. It's not fair to divide by the total population because not everyone will be looking for a job or needs a job. So that's one of the mistakes that I saw. And another mistake that I saw, some people thought that, you know, sa subsistence poor, those with incomes below the subsistence threshold, are a different or is not a subset, no, of the general poor. No, they are actually. So they're not two distinct systems. No, one is a subset of the other. Mas poor lang yung food poor or subsistence poor. No? They are, it's lower kasi nga you need a lower threshold, but they are part of the general poor population. And mind you, it doesn't mean that you're food poor or subsistence poor, you're experiencing hunger. And for those of you who tackled the San Remigio, I think, no, CBMS case, no, you saw this firsthand, no. More than half had incomes below the food threshold, but only a few, no, a small percentage were experiencing, because this is income. The income-based measure measures income to buy food, but it doesn't mean you are lacking food, no? Kasi sila, for example, if it's the rural area, sometimes you grow vegetables in your backyard. So your income is not great, but it doesn't mean you really, in reality, lack food, no? Pero I mean, there's that. Sometimes, no, it's a good predictor of hunger, but it's not automatic. Ito, I saw this in a lot of, I saw this problem in a lot of the papers. No? Whenever you're trying, that's why I provided the APIS, the MPI. Percentages are important, no? Because the point of the assignment was to put them relative to each other. No? So for example, if you're talking about Marikina or San Remeo, if you present to me percentages, then you'll automatically identify eventually that these pala are more are worse, no, worse indicators than others, no? So you'll identify the most major challenges, no? But if you're just spewing numbers, ganun, it doesn't give me context, no? Whenever you're assessing or diagnosing challenges, it's always, no, for social sciences, always use percentages. It puts the gravity of the problem into context and allows you to compare. Um, and some papers actually just summarize already right off the bat. No, oh, the problem is this, blah, 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 without even putting the numbers on the paper. No? So include data. No, if you're writing a paper, you have to include the data if you're talking. So use percentages and put them in the paper to prove your point. Just let me know, guys, if you have questions. Oven, another thing, no, of course, it's understandable, and many of you, no, good research, no, some of you consulted external sources for the interventions part. That's okay if you feel uncomfortable designing your own interventions. Pero yun nga, for those of you who try to come up with your own interventions, one important thing that you'd have to realize, governments are not supposed to be the main provider of employment. It's really the private sector. Governments are not supposed to be the predominant employer of an LGU or a country. It's trying to, yun nga, the important is the private sector. So what can government policies look like, no, to entice the private sector? And we'll talk about that in a while as well, when I provide additional input for last week's lessons on that investment climate or enabling environment. That's what we call, no, in the development parlance. That's what economists call it. No? Enabling environment is government enables or how attractive a place is for businesses to come in to invest. Another point, education is free, definitely, no, and provided by the national government. So you don't have to say that, oh, the LGU should provide education for free. And by the way, the education is not provided by the local government. It's provided by DepEd. LGUs, on the other hand, can supplement by meals, materials, etc., through what is called a special education fund. Even transportation as well and food, no, for example. And another point, no, some of you said, no, and it's good, no, to think about it. Some papers propose, no, we have to convince people to be entrepreneurs. You cannot force people to be entrepreneurs. You can offer assistance to those interested, but you cannot convert people or sort of convince them if they don't, if that's not their chosen path. For me, for example, no, parang you can't say that everyone can be an entrepreneur. I cannot be. I am not, I studied management economics, but I don't think I can be an entrepreneur. It's just not what I like. So yes, I like the fact that this can be offered, but it doesn't mean that should be the only solution to the problem. So it's hard. You can not just anyone can be an entrepreneur. And so some papers, I think I fault them for not being very very specific and very thoughtful. No? Kasi iba parang the LGU should focus this or should provide or give them their basic capabilities. So how? What? Diba? Parang we keep on asking what and how. Diba? Parang very specific. Going back to education, education is long-term. No? Some, despite the glaring income disparities and income hardships of the municipality or the city, no, they basically propose education lang. Remember that education is long-term. No? before that bears fruit, you still have to, the LGU still has to address immediate needs. So sometimes you have to do that in combination. So you can't just focus on the long term while forgetting the short term. No? On the practical side, if you're a mayor and each term is only 3 years, no way that education will get you your second term. I said that's very long-termish. And last, no, on the substantive side, no, on the substance side, make sure the interventions match the diagnosis. No? Kasi some of you, yes, you diagnose, and then when it came to interventions, parang hindi match. Remember, the point of the exercise, and I hope you guys liked the exercise or found it at least interesting. No? The exercise was more about you trying to be doctors of development, no? By diagnosing and then making interventions. No? Yung doctor naman won't diagnose and then give a different intervention. So dapat match. Don't just parang be off tangent and go wherever you want just because you thought this was a good idea. No, always go back to the data and try to match it. Match what's there. Pero naman, on the organization side, so there's a difference between being a paper and an essay question. Some of you actually submitted like essay type, 1 paragraph, that's it. No, it's a paper. It's actually a paper. Second, no need for long intro, no, especially for assignments. No, that no need to explain to me what CBMS is again. So because why? I mean, we're already studying that. Just go straight. You can do, if you're used to doing introductions, no problem. Pero keep it short. Don't use half a page already just to introduce something that you've already covered in class. And as I said, no, the guide questions are just guide questions. They're not necessarily the outline of the paper. Some of you, I really like, no, where the diagnosis, the intervention immediately follow the diagnosis. So boom, boom, boom. Diba? Hindi yung paulit-ulit. No? You diagnose, then you keep repeating the data again. You can keep repeating data if it's a long paper, let's say 20, 50 pages. But if it's a 2-page paper, sayang yung space if you keep repeating figures and conclusions. And then ito, no, and I'm sorry, no, I know some of you are regulars, and I really appreciate your attendance here, no, and some actually did not follow instructions, even though they were discussed in class, no, because many actually don't come to class. So as I announced earlier, no, in one of my announcements, if I say something during class and you're not present, problema mo na yan. I record the session anyway, so you can watch in your own free time. So again, if you remember, one of the instructions was don't use external resources to diagnose data. No? But some still did. No? And what's even worse, some actually used other data, external data, to diagnose more than the CBMS data. But the point of the exercise was to focus on CBMS data. But I like the fact that others naman, which is okay with me, no, they used external data to compare. Let's say, ano ba yun, Marikina yata. No? Ito kasi, the Philippines, ito yung level, Marikina ito, therefore Marikina is lagging or faring better. Okay yon. Pero to diagnose Marikina or San Remigio using another data set, medyo weird kasi yun nga, you're already, the exercise is to read. That's how well you're able to read the CBMS. So I kept saying that. It's actually in one of my slides. No? The diagnosis part, avoid using external sources. Interventions pwede if you're not confident about your own ideas for intervention. And in terms of writing lang, break apart the paragraphs. No? I saw really, really long paragraphs. No? A 2-page paper can't just have 2 or 3 paragraphs. So learn how to give, it's like you're reading. When you're a reader, it's harder if it's just one big block of text. Make it easier for your reader. And this is not just for this class, no? Especially the writing, layout, and organizing. I hope this will be useful for your your future assignments for other classes. Including headers usually makes sense, no? To make it easier for the readers. And sometimes I like the approach of having uh, headline titles, no? That gives you a good summary of what you're about to present. And again, in terms of organization, avoid repeating, especially if it's a short paper. So you try to find a way that it's more cohesive, hindi na patalon-talon. All right. Any questions on those things? If I don't see any hands or chats, I will just continue. Ayun, sorry. None po. All right. Sige. Okay, let's continue. So today's session, what I thought of, and this this is not on Canvas. No? Some of the things that I will discuss. No? It will be on Canvas, obviously, because I'm recording this. No? But this is not in your original Module 3 course. No? And this got me thinking. No? In my Wednesday class, no? They actually asked a question, which got me thinking, maybe I should include this as a short mini lecture. No? So I'll provide some inputs on investment climate for your own additional learning as well. And I hope you find it interesting. And then we'll, as I mentioned last time, we'll end Module 3 tonight, Part 3 of Module 3, the integral approach. And then I'll provide a short introduction to Module 4, and then I'll post it a few days from now. All right, let's just revisit. No? So remember last week, no, we kept on emphasizing the role of manufacturing. No? From Rostow all the way to the Lewis dual factor. No? So manufacturing is king. Importante yan for you to be able to really move up, level up. And when we were talking about the Lewis dual factor model, no? We also revisited the way the Philippine economy is structured. And we found, and there's an economic sort of economic postulate that, you have to first, it's kind of linear, no? It's agriculture, then you move on to robust manufacturing, then you'll be able to move on to services. But ito muna, you have to have a deep manufacturing sector. Because as we learned, the manufacturing really provides a lot of employment, provides a lot of economic interlinkages, no? Mga forward and backward linkages. You probably heard that term sa management courses ninyo, and you'll learn that more in your 4th year. No? So in the Philippine case naman, we don't have, which is weird, no? We don't have a strong manufacturing base. We basically leapfrog manufacturing, and that's bad. No? Many experts are saying that's bad because, again, services will not allow you to have that critical mass for employment and rapid economic. Di ba? Kita nyo, services accounts for the lion's share of the economy. Ito siya, the light gray one. Manufacturing is second, and then agriculture is a laggard. So okay lang agriculture kasi usually naman, as an economy grows, no, agriculture's share in the Philippine economy becomes less. Okay lang. Now, the question is, so why did we leapfrog manufacture? Why did we forget? Why did the country? Was it a conscious government choice? That was actually one of the questions my Wednesday class posed no last week. And it got me thinking, yeah, I should probably provide more information. So it's not necessarily sadya, no, intentional on the part of government, whether that's the Arroyo administration, Pinoy era, Pinoy Arroyo, or this current administration. No, it was not. So the question now is, now we go to this mini lecture, which think of this as additional information for you guys, additional learning, especially if you're interested in this stuff. So ito, So the key question is, so why did the Philippines fare poorly in terms of manufacturing or investment in general? And it all boils down to what we call overall poor competitiveness. Competitiveness lang naman is, di ba, parang you're playing sports, no? Let's say Ateneo is more competitive than UP, or they're equally as competitive versus the, let's say NU or UE, or you know, the other UAAP schools. So competitive lang naman is you're more attractive, you're performing better than the others. That's competitive. And you know, we've actually been, to be honest, no, we've been rather left behind, no, in Asia, at least Asia or the ASEAN region. And there's this global measure called the Global Competitiveness Index. It's a bunch of 100 indicators, actually, um, by the World Economic Forum, WEF. So there are 12 pillars. Marami yan, daming indicators. So this is our overall ranking. So we've actually improved, no? I mean, from the Arroyo administration, we've improved, and then we've become stagnant, and we've sort of gone down a bit again. But pay attention to the red marks. One important thing that has been lacking since before is infrastructure. We are not that competitive, for one, because of infrastructure. This is ranking. No? So the lower you are, the worse off you are. Nag-improve a bit, but not quite. No? And even the health infrastructure. And this was even before the pandemic. So which means talagang we were not ready for the pandemic, no? when it hit us. So keep in mind, no? Infrastructure. And that's the first. No? Infrastructure has been a major source of concern for investors. Why? Diba? If you're a business, again, your mental, let's say, you can use as your mental shortcut or mnemonic or a reminder, when you say investment or manufacturing, mga factories, etc., etc. Infrastructure. Why is infrastructure important? Because, you know, if you have high transport and logistics costs, no, and that's the problem in the Philippines, no, poor connectivity, no, both physical road layout, which hampers mobility, and then internet costs as well, were one of the highest in Asia, or the highest, no, priced in Asia. And then you have expensive power costs. I will not invest. No, that will not be as attractive to businesses, no, whether domestic or foreign. It will deter the private sector from investing. So in the Philippines, infrastructure is bad. To be specific about it, we have very high transport and logistics costs. You'll find it funny, no? Shipping, sometimes, no, from, I think, California yata yon, to Manila is cheaper than Davao to Manila. Maraming kwento dyan. No? There's that shipping monopoly or oligopoly. So we have one of the highest transport and logistics costs in the world, poor road and digital connectivity, and even power. We're the second most expensive power, no? Expensive in terms of electricity costs in Asia, next to Japan. So that's what. That's a deterrent for business. So hindi sinasadya, no? Government did not say, oh, investors keep out. No, it's having weak things, no, weak variables, no, that make it unattractive to businesses, whether that's foreign investors coming or even domestic. No? Yeah, and another thing is the capacity of government agencies for the longest time. No, DPWH, Department of Transport, to carry out, mahina din. Sometimes we're at the mercy of experts from abroad. So it's what we call the absorptive capacity, or their capacity to implement. You know, if you, for example, pursue government or a career in pursue development or a career in government, you soon realize the government has been for the longest time very good at doing plans, framework, roadmap, etc. But implementing it, we are weak as a country, government, since before. The bureaucracy is weak. So that's infrastructure. And the bureaucracy behind infrastructure. That's kind of another thing, no? Is the high barriers to entry, no? And other restrictive regulatory measures. So ito naman, it's basically saying here, no? And I can provide more. I don't want to go through this in depth, no? Because this is not supposed to be an economics course, but competition is still, there's still a lot of monopolies out there, oligopolies, etc., etc. So competition is still restricted in many sectors of the economy. So, for example, energy, konti lang. You have the big conglomerates, no? Smart, sa telecoms, you have only two and now three. No? So competition is still limited. No? So, and we have been ranking low in many of these indices. No? So part of it is the sectors are highly regulated. Sometimes they're protectionist. No? Sometimes the laws or the regulations deter additional businesses from stepping in. There are some problems in terms of regulations. Ito naman, when it comes to attracting foreign investments, no? We have one of the most restrictive economies in terms of foreign ownership or foreign businesses coming over. They did a survey, I think 2019 or 2020 even. No? We are 51 out of 53. I think we only bested Palestine and Libya. So because we restrict, no, a lot of our economic sectors, no, a lot of our laws restrict foreign ownership. Sometimes it's just capped to 40%. In many countries, for example, Singapore, US, a Filipino can own land, a Filipino can own businesses. We are the most restricted. And, I just saw this in the news this morning, actually last night, in another new survey, no? I got a screen grab for you guys. No? Inquirer, Business World, no? Out of 14 Asia Pacific countries, no? Oxford Economics, another legit source, no? We are second to the last. No? China, Vietnam, 1, 2. Because yun nga, no? We don't attract. No, yun nga, our different problems of infrastructure, government capacity are weak. No? It's compounded by the regulations we have. No? We don't open up to investments, no? Abroad even. So there are various things that the Oxford Economics looked at. But it all boils down again to, a lot of this all boils down to the Constitution or the laws that we have that prohibit foreign investors. So there are both factors that inhibit domestic and foreign investors. And that's a reason why, the manufacturing has not kept pace with investments. And regulatory quality, this has to do with how a country or a govern or an LGU for that matter, how they are friendly to businesses. Dito na yung red tape and bureaucracy. No? So, in 1 year, the WEF actually ranked as a second worst in terms of the bureaucracy. It takes such a long time just to get a business permit, to start a business. It's really bad. I used to be a city advisor to Batangas City at one point in my life, and I really saw the bureaucracy there. And we tried to just simplify things so it's more business friendly. Even customs procedures, really bad. Logistics, as we discussed earlier, were also one of the lowest, and even the tax rates are high compared to our neighbors. So a lot of things are not business friendly, whether that's foreign or domestic. So it doesn't incentivize firms or people to enter or engage in business in the Philippines. A lot of Filipino conglomerates actually seek greener pastures abroad. And going back to government capacity, uh, there's this World Governance Index naman. You know, there's a whole industry when it comes to assessing countries in terms of economic strength, in terms of governance, in terms of peace and order, etc., etc. So this is one other thing, no, which is useful as well. No? So again, government efficiency and effectiveness is another factor that deters businesses from investing, whether domestic or foreign. So ito, kita nyo, regulatory quality is just how good our regulations are, the laws and policies. No? Are they business friendly or not? So Philippines, if you see, we're just ahead of Cambodia and Indonesia. Other than that, we're laggards. Obviously, Myanmar is down. Same thing with government effectiveness. Now, very, 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 compared to, let's say, Brunei, Singapore is 100. Yung percentile rank nila. No? Corruption is also a big issue. So those things, no, businesses also, these are also deterrents to businesses. These factors. So there you go. So why did the Philippines fare poorly in terms of manufacturing or facilitating investment in general? We have these things. We have weak infrastructure. We are, in general, not that competitive compared to our neighbors at the very least. Infrastructure is bad. As you can see, dito it's red. I mean, the structure of the economy, there's a lot of uncompetitive markets, the health sector, ICT sector, etc. The more competition, basically, the better for consumers and businesses. And the better for employment as well. Yeah, our regulations are very restrictive. The factors deter domestic investment. Our own laws actually also explicitly disallow or prohibit greater or more significant foreign investment. Our regulations are crazy. It's super hard to, if your parents own a business, ask them. The bureaucracy is just a nightmare, for most LGUs and national government. And government efficiency and effectiveness is. So these are all deterrents to both domestic and foreign business. So I just wanted to share that and give you some statistics. If you want more data or readings on this, please let me know. I can pepper you with some. In my work, these are the issues I grapple with on a daily basis even. These are the things that we try to support the Philippine government to improve on. Pero malayo pa because these are very, very long-term issues. And there's a lot of resistance also by the big businesses who benefit from less competition. All right, I don't see any questions unless you have or comments. So I will move on. So that's just an additional input for our past lessons, module first and second part of module 3. So now we're now gonna shift gears, and we're gonna study another model this time. It's more inclusive and it's a more integrative model. Kasi we discussed na. If you think about it, most of the what do you call this? Most of the models we've studied so far are all about economic activity, manufacturing, growth. Diba? It was heavy emphasis on employment, manufacturing. Sige lang. Now, we're going to talk about donut economics. And it's integral ecology and sustainable development. Diba remember we discussed the age of sustainability by Jeffrey Sachs? When we discussed in Module 1 SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, it was all about, the problem with economic development or economic growth is if that's just your focus, sometimes you may just end up forgetting about the environment. Now, this is a paradigm that's being offered by, this is a more contemporary, more modern paradigm. I think this book came out in just in the last 5 years, not even 5 years from now. It's by Kate Raworth. Actually, the Ateneo Economics Association, I think that was last year or last year, no, actually had some webinars just discussing this topic. So, and you had the TED Talk, no, on module 3 on Canvas, and I hope some of you have finished this or covered this already. Can someone explain to me this? What is, in summary, what is the donut economics all about? Why do we call it a more integrative paradigm of looking at development? Sige nga, if anyone has, you can help me. I've been speaking for the last ilang minutes na ba? 44 minutes. So, anyone who can summarize for me what this is all about? I assume that most of you have finished this, no? Unless you're so busy with all of your requirements.
Um, Sir, I think this is just basically
Sige.
how the economy is circular, and we're so hung up on growth that we fail to look at the fact that we can just get everything that's already around us as a product of what already grew within the past years, that we don't need to grow as much as we think we need to do.
Sige. So why is it called a donut? Why is it a donut paradigm?
I forgot the sir. I watched a long time ago.
Yeah. Okay lang. No worries. So it's a pretty cool illustration of what we want to achieve. It's a donut because, well, it looks like a donut, no? But let me try to explain in summary. No? But you can refer back to the TED Talk if you want more details. The bottom line is there are two sides to this. No? The inner hole, of course, it's a donut. No? You have the inner circle, which is the hole, and then you have the outer circle. And for a donut, no, you have the exterior, which is the ceiling, diba? Just like any object, you have the outer edge or the outer circle in this case. So what Dr. Raworth was saying was, here the inner circle is our shortfall. Kaya nga butas, no? It's your gap. No? That's why we have the SDGs, no? Because around the world, different countries and globally, we are having a shortfall in different things, different items. So there's a shortfall. Kaya nga butas, diba? There's a gap. There's shortfall when it comes to food, water, energy, housing, gender equality, etc., etc. So these are all your whatever you want to call it, capability, their income and non-income well-being indicators. So in the world, globally, there is a shortfall. Some people, a lot of people are still grappling with just meeting minimum quantities of these things. Kaya butas, there is a shortfall. But on the other hand, while you have a gap on these things, you're now overshooting. Kaya nga there's two sides. There's the gap, and then you're overshooting naman on the other hand. The overshooting now refers to an ecological ceiling. While you're trying to grow your economy, you have a shortfall, Kumbaga, it's not inclusive growth, in the sense na your economy might be humming, performing well, but you have a shortfall when it comes to providing for a large segment of the population. At the same time, you're overshooting the ecological ceiling. The outer circle of the donut is now the environment. Because of your quest for growth. And the funny thing with Raworth, she starts her TED Talk with Rostow. Kasi kay Rostow, parang sige, grow lang ng grow, di ba? She starts with Rostow, with a criticism of Rostow. Now, the problem is, at that point in time, during Rostow time, people were not as aware as now, of the ecological or environmental implications. So sige lang ng sige. And that has led to overshooting. In our quest for rapid economic growth, economic development, activity, no, but we still fail to provide large segments of the population. At the same time, we overshoot. And that is a problem for sustainability. Diba? You now have climate change, no, because of pollution, of carbon emissions, ozone layer again, biodiversity loss, etc., etc. So that's basically that in a nutshell. And the inner piece of the donut, that's why there's this, ano, sabihin mo ng cream filling, no, or whatever, the dough inside. No? This is just the right place. No? Kumbaga, the equilibrium or the optimal place. No? Not here, not outside, not here too because it's shortfall. Dito lang, sakto lang. You're not breaching any ceiling. At the same time, there is no shortfall. Diba? So, ganda ng illustration, diba? It's a pretty cool concept. Now, she is now arguing, and back to your point, no, on the circular economy. The problem kasi is before, no, there was always that trade-off between do we choose economic development or the environment. Dati kasi parang they're seen as mutually exclusive. No? If I choose this, no, then sorry na lang yung environment. Or, yun naman, if I go solar, mahal naman yung kuryente. No? So, and that has implications to the economy. So, dati there was a tug of war, and even up to now, no? Between choosing economy ba or environment. Dr. Rauer's point, it's not just to present this, no? It's also saying, no, it can happen whereby you're both cognizant of the ecological ceiling or you're trying your best to actually address that while meeting the development challenges. And that has to do with regenerative and distributive economy. So that brings us to what we call the circular economy. So the main ethos, the main point of Dr. Rauer when it comes to the sustainable development is it can go hand in hand. No? So she goes one step further. No? Kasi it's not just about, you can still continue doing development without harming the environment. But that is more passive. What she's actually advocating for is be more active. No? You can actually, at the same time that you're facilitating or boosting economic activity, you can also help actually address some of the ecological issues. It can go hand in hand. And we will go back to this point no, when we talk about the role of the private sector in development. There's actually, you can make money and at the same time, you can address the ecological things. So that's part of the circular economy. So for example, renewable energy, no, it helps address, ito lang. For example, renewable energy lang. Just to cite an example. It helps address this overshooting, climate change, while at the same time addressing the shortfall of energy. So it's not just do no harm, no? It's actually more active. You're actively addressing an ecological problem while you're doing something to meet a certain development challenge, whether that's energy or something else. Singapore, no, I think I included that on Canvas. It's one of the best examples I've seen so far of this. No? Sa Singapore, if you don't know this, no, by now, the water they drink, no, comes from the stuff you flush. They recycle water. Circular kasi it's all about renewing, it's all about recycling, it's all about focusing on not depleting resources. So Singapore naman, iba yun. No? Singapore naman is doing it because, again, innovation, the mother of innovation is desperation. So Singapore is known to be uh, they don't have a lot of natural resources. So water before, no, they used to import. So now they develop technologies so they can renew. They can keep recycling water. And so the water that they flush, they end up drinking it and back to the toilet again. So the advocacy of Kate Raworth is how do you actually actively address by not depleting resources or making them renewable energy, or what do you call this? Ano pa ba? Recycling, no? And here, uso na ngayon, it's not just recycling, upcycling, di ba? Turning it to something fancy, no? So you can sell it again. So you limit disposal and incineration, you keep recycling, using, producing. So even supply chains, no? For example, if you see yung mga boxes, in the States also to, no? Made with 99% recycled material. Even the sleeve in Starbucks, no? The coffee is made from or from biodegradable corn, whatever. So that's what Kate Raworth was saying. The point is about not just presenting the framework or what is happening right now. It's to offer that, you can actually, it's not supposed to be necessarily a trade-off, no? But you can at the same time address climate change issues and address some of these, no? Two in one. No? You integrate it into your strategies. And then one of the good ways is to have a circular economy framework by which you minimize disposal and use. So you keep on, kaya nga circular, paulit-ulit. Cycling, recycling, focusing on renewable energy, for example, product design or components, no, having more recyclable materials there, etc., etc. And you'll see more, no, if you once you finish module 3. This is, I think, the last part of module 3 on campus. All right. Yeah. No questions. So I'll keep lang. No? So this is the end of the session. I haven't posted module 4 yet, no? But I'll be posting them in the next few days. No? Module 4 is the longest module. No? So if you haven't finished module 3 by now, I urge you, especially the discussion boards, try to finish it by this week, no? So that you'll have a lot of time for module 4. I've sort of, in my suggested pace, I think I've suggested probably spending around a month, no, for this, because that also includes your assignment. The instructions for your assignment as a group, no? And I'll explain this more next week. No? Your group assignments, no? Will be included in module 4. It's the longest module. No?
Sorry, group assignments meaning you're gonna
Not the FIO, the assignment 2. Assignment 2. Remember, your grade is composed of 4 things. Online discussion, assignment 1, which I just finished grading. Then there's 2 more pieces. No? A minor group assignment, which accounts for 25% of your grade, and the final integrated output, the FIO.
So for that one, coach, where we this will be, is this different from Big Kiss, coach?
No, yes, the FIO is the big kiss. The FIO is the big kiss / SOCSI 13 final integrated output.
Oh, okay. So but for the minor project, like, do you assign our groups for that, or we pick our
Ayun nga, you will be using, I'll explain more next week, but it's the same groups.
Oh, okay.
Same group. Kumbaga, I want you, before you embark on your FIO, no, your final integrated output for NSTP and Big Kiss, I want you to sort of practice your group dynamics. So it's going to be the same. more information next week.
Noted.
Even I'll try if I can, no, I'll already have the topic assignments. No? Basically, you will be assessing a certain law or a proposed law. You will critique it. So that will be part of module 4. It's very interesting, no? Because in the past, no, this will be the first time that students have actually critiqued a law or look closely at the law. So this might be a new experience for most of you. So I hope you'll find it also interesting, even if it might be challenging for some. So that will be part of module 4. More next week. Don't worry. I'll come up with the full mechanics next week. So module 4, no, just wanted to present to you, no, each new administration, no, they come up with a medium-term plan. It used to be MTPDP, no, Medium-Term Philippine Development Plan. So you'd expect the length to be 6 years or 5.5 years because they need 6 months to a year to finish crafting the plan. So here we have the PDP, no, the Philippine Development Plan. So it's now short term, hindi na MTPDP, just PDP. It's actually based, and I'll include this on Canvas anyway, some videos, like some articles. No? It's actually anchored on, this is a previous initiative. No? This is an initiative by the previous administration called Ambisyon Natin 2014. Basically, during the time of the Aquino administration, they did a lot of focus group discussions. They went around the country, to all different sectors, different groups, rich, poor, etc., just to basically ask them, we already covered this pala in module 1. So you had the three things, so malasakit, pagbabago, etc. So it's anchored, no? So we're expecting that all succeeding PDPs, even after this administration, will be anchored on that matatag, ginhawa, at panatag na buhay. Which we I keep forgetting that we already covered this. So by 2022, by the end of the administration, this was what NEDA came out. It's not just NEDA, but this is a whole government approach. And they also consult with the private sector and NGOs when they're doing this plan. I've been to some in my younger days during the Arroyo administration. So here, you see three major things. They want the social dimension, meaning they want, efficient governance, to give that Philippine value. So this is sort of the soft, if you want to think of it as the soft side, enhancing the social fabric. If you want to think economy, these are the two main legs which deal with economy. So pagbabago, inequality, reducing transformation, and increasing the growth potential. So yun, you're seeing the growth, the emphasis on the economy again. So the topics that we will cover in module 4 are those encircled here. So we're going to talk about agriculture, which is part of this economic opportunities. We're going to talk about micro, small, and medium enterprises. How do you help them maximize opportunities? We will also talk about fiscal policy when we talk about tax policy, fiscal things. The word fiscal lang naman means either tax collection, revenue generation, or spending. Revenue, government earning money, revenues, or government spending money. And then we're also going to talk about population and demography, maximizing the demographic dividend. So those four things. We're going to talk about agriculture, which is part of the economic opportunities piece. We're also going to talk about agrarian reform when we talk about agriculture. Second thing we're going to discuss is fiscal, how governments get revenues and how they spend the revenues they get. We're also going to talk about micro, small, and medium enterprises. And fourth, population and demography. So all of these, if we had more time, no, in this course, no, we could have gone through all these different sectors. But we're focusing on four for now. But if you want, feel free to read the PDP, especially if you're having difficulty sleeping. You might fall asleep after reading. I mean, I'm not saying it's not interesting, but it's a very thick textbook and a lot of a lot of text. So, but it's also interesting, especially if you want to get more to be more familiar with some of these uh, long-standing issues. No, sorry, I had to sneeze. No? Long-standing issues. The backgrounder part of the PDP, no, kasi per chapter, no, per sector that they tackle, they give a good background. No? So, maganda. This is also useful in terms of the information that they provide. And I think that's it. Ayun. So, yun nga. Sorry, I didn't know I had this slide. So, yeah. I'm going to talk about agriculture, rural development, agrarian reform, fiscal, population, and SME development. So, this module will be the longest. And that's one of the things why I haven't posted it on Canvas yet. I'm still trying to cut down uh, the materials for under module 4. It's quite lengthy, especially the first one. All right, any questions? Again, if you're interested in any of these things or you want more reading materials on X, Y, and Z, let me know. I'll be more than happy to send them over. I know you guys have a lot on your plate as well, but in your own free time, if you're interested really in some additional reading materials, let me know. All right. Any comments, questions? Parang wala. And there's only 5 if you anyway. Sige lang. All right. So I hope assignment 1 was interesting, at least for most of you. No? So in this class, we're gonna all the examples or the assignments that we have are very, very grounded, no? Meaning they're real. No? They're based on real examples, real policies, etc. To give you a more grounded flavor. So that I hope you appreciate that. Okay. So let's call it an evening. Let's call it a day. I'll see you guys next week. Hopefully, we'll be joined by more of your classmates. All right. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Enjoy your dinner.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir.
Good night, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Good night.
Sir.